Bonjour and good morning. Welcome to WASA Distance Education and PLAR English. And this is week 3 of classes. It's our first class in week 3, and there are 2 classes per week. And finally, we get to our regular schedule this week with classes on Mondays and Wednesdays from 11 till 12 Central Standard Time. Okay, so 2 ways to participate in classes. You can participate on radio or on Zoom. So on radio, you call into our studio, long distance 1-800-465-7144 or local 807-737-4017. If you participate on radio, you will get the audio only of the class. You can also participate on Zoom. To use Zoom, you need to use the link provided in your study guide or go to nnec-on-ca.zoom.us. To sign in, you have to download the Zoom client first onto your laptop if you haven't done that already. And the instructions are in your study guide. So you can look it up there or you can contact me and I can walk you through it. Of course, that would be before class. Just a reminder that all PLAR English students are welcome to attend classes. So if you signed up for radio Zoom classes or you signed up for PLAR through IL, you can still attend the classes or watch the recorded classes on YouTube. To contact me, you can use email, phone, or send a message on Facebook. Students who were working on the PLAR last year can keep working on the key questions and continue to submit them to your teacher. And the PLAR classes from last year are still available on YouTube and are updated as I record new classes. So today's class will replace the class from last year, but all of the ones from last year are still there in case you are working ahead of where we are in class. Something new for PLAR this year, and this applies to all PLAR students. So all PLAR students can write the culminating activity before doing the lessons and key questions. So if you feel like you have a good background in English or science or math or history or geography and you don't need to do the lessons, then you can do the culminating activity first. If you pass the culminating activity, then you don't have to do the lesson key questions and you can just move on to the next subject. If you're not successful with the culminating activity, so if you don't get a mark of 50 or better, then you have to go through the lessons and complete the key questions. And then after that, you can write another culminating activity. Okay, so if you are good with math, like I said, or English, or any of the other subjects, and you feel like you don't need to do the lessons in order to pass the test, then you can choose to do the test first. And then you don't have to do the lessons and key questions. So when you do the lessons, there are 2 types of questions that you'll find in the lessons. There are support questions and key questions. And the support questions are scattered throughout the lessons. So you'll read a section and then there will be a support question. Those questions are for you to practice what you just learned, what you just read. And then after you've done the support questions, the answers to the support questions can be found near the end of the lesson, right before the key questions. So check your answers against the answers to the support questions. And if you've done well with the support questions, then you can move on to the key questions. If you're having trouble with the support questions, then you need to get more help. You can go back and read the section and try the key question or support question again. You can contact me for help or get help from somebody else. But you need to do the support questions first. Then you can do the key questions. The key questions are the ones that you submit to me for marking. Those are the ones that have marks. The support questions do not. So once you've done the key questions, then you need to send them out to me for marking as soon as possible. Don't hang on to all of the key questions until you've finished the entire lesson. Okay. Ways to submit your work. There are several different ways. So if your community has a learning center and a DEC, the first way, or maybe the easiest way, is to give your work to the DEC, and then the DEC will send it out to us here in Sioux Lookout. If you don't have a learning center in your community, or your DEC is away or off or whatever, then you can submit your own work. And again, there are several ways to do that. If you have access to a scanner, you can scan and email your work to this email address, studentwork@nnec.on.ca, and make sure you CC it to me. My email address is on the front cover of your lesson. Or if you have access to a fax machine, you can fax it to us here in Sioux Lookout. If you don't have access to a scanner or a fax machine, then you can use your smartphone. With your smartphone, you can either take photos of your work and send it, or you can scan your work using your smartphone. So you can either email the photos or the scanned work to that same email address, studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Make sure if you're typing the address in correctly, or we won't get it. And of course, make sure you CC to me, or you can also send it using Facebook Messenger. Okay, a lot of students submit their work using Facebook Messenger, especially students who don't have a learning center or who don't have good access to the learning center in your community. Okay. Next, if you are in Sioux Lookout, you're living in Sioux Lookout or the surrounding area, and you come to Sioux Lookout fairly often, you can drop off your work. We have a mailbox located in the parking lot of the WASA building. You can drop your work off in there, or you can knock on the front door and hand it to someone who answers the door. You can also use Google Docs and send me a link to your work, and I can access it that way, or you can use Google Classroom to complete and submit your work as well. So lots of ways for you to get your work to us. So even if you don't have a learning center in your community, you can still complete and submit your work. Okay, so we'll start off our class with a review of what we have been talking about so far, and this is the third week of classes. First week we had one class, last week we had two classes. So in the three classes that we've had so far, we have been talking about the different parts of speech. So we're talking basically about the basics of the English language. Okay, and the basics starts off with the different parts of speech. So we've worked on the different parts of speech now. We've gone through them. We've had key questions about them as well. So the 8 parts of speech are, first of all, nouns. And the nouns are naming words. So the name of a person, place, thing, or idea. Pronouns are words that are used in place of a noun. So instead of repeating a noun over and over, so if we're talking about something, if we're talking about, for example, a dog, instead of saying the dog, the dog, the dog, the dog over and over in our sentences, or the dog's name. So the dog ran after me, the dog tried to bite me, I kicked the dog, I ran away. So you can say, instead of repeating the dog, the dog, the dog, the dog ran after me, it tried to bite me, I kicked it, and I ran away. Okay, so you're not saying the dog over and over again. So that's what pronouns are used for. I mean, it could be anything. You could be talking about a car, and instead of repeating it over and over, you say it. Okay, then we learned about verbs, and nouns and verbs are the two most important parts of speech. Every sentence must have a noun and a verb in it. So a noun is the name of person, place, or thing, or idea. A verb is an action word. It shows an action or state of being. So basically a verb tells us what the noun is doing or has done or will do. So words like anything that you can do. You can go somewhere, you can speak, you can eat, you can live, you can be. Those are all verbs. So I listen to the word and then repeat it. Okay, so listen is a verb, repeat is a verb. Okay, so those are the most important parts of speech, but they're not the only parts of speech. So we also have adjectives, and adjectives are describing words. Okay, they describe, modify, or give more information about a noun or a pronoun. So instead of just saying the girl has a hat, we can give more information by saying, what's the girl like? Well, she's little. And what's her hat like? The hat is pink. So the little girl has a pink hat. That gives us more information. It describes the girl and it describes the hat. Okay, so those are adjectives. Adverbs are also modifiers, but adverbs are used to modify or describe or give more information about a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. So adverbs tell how or how often. So how did he walk? He walked slowly. They also tell where and when. Where did he walk? To the beach. When did he walk? Yesterday. Okay, so examples: slowly, very, always, well, and to. So yesterday is an adverb, tells when. I ate my lunch quickly. Quickly is the adverb that tells how I ate. Okay, we also have prepositions. And a preposition, so think of the word position. That's a part of the word preposition. A preposition shows the relationship of a noun or pronoun to another word. So most of them are small words: at, on, in, from, with, about. So for example, I left my keys on the table. So the relationship between the keys and the table, so it's on, and for you. So the keys are for you. So the relationship again between the noun and the pronoun you. Number 7 is a conjunction, and a conjunction is a word or words that joins other words, ideas, and phrases together and shows how they're connected. So examples of joining words are and, or, but, because, yet, and so. So I was hot and tired, so two things, but still finished it. Okay, so they connect the ideas: I was hot, I was tired, I finished it. So it connects those three ideas together into one sentence. Number 8, interjections. So a word or phrase that expresses a strong emotion. So it's not long, it's just a word or a phrase, and it expresses strong emotion. We use them all the time. Ouch. Hey, oh, watch out. Wow, I passed my English exam. So those are interjections. And interjections are usually followed by an exclamation point, because exclamation points show strong emotion, that someone is yelling or excited or something like that. So generally they will have an exclamation mark. Okay, and just one or two words. They're not actual sentences, they're just expressions. Okay, so those are the 8 parts of speech. We also, looked at a specific type of adjective, the article. Okay, so there are only 2 articles. One definite article, which is the word the, and an indefinite article, which is a or an, depending on what word comes after it. So the is like saying I ate the apple that was on the table. So it's a specific apple. A and an used for not specific. So I ate an apple. Not any particular apple, just an apple. Okay, or I sat on a chair, not a specific chair, just any chair. So we looked a little bit at articles too. All right, so now we have covered key questions 1, 2, and 3, and so today we're going to look at capital letters and punctuation, because they go hand in hand, and that'll be key questions 4 and 5. So in your lesson, beginning on page 28, you will find the places where we use capitalization, so basically capitalization rules. Page top of page 29 is support question 11. So practice using capital letters. And of course, the answers to that are at the end of the lesson. So make sure you check after you do those questions. So what are the capitalization rules? So first of all is capitalize the first word of a sentence. So you'll notice in this sentence it tells us what to do. The first letter is capitalized. So the first letter of the first word. So if I were saying the dog chased me. Okay? Capital letter, the first word in the sentence. Okay, just the first letter, not the whole word. Okay, number 2, capitalize proper nouns. So when we looked at nouns, remember we looked at common nouns and proper nouns are specific names of people or places. So for example, use the same sentence. The dog chased Mary. So Mary is a name, specific name of a specific person, so it needs a capital letter, Mary. So anybody's name, or dog's name, or cat's name, or any name needs a capital letter because they are proper nouns. Number 3, capitalize the majority of titles, so books, movies, or professions. So a title, let's see, the book Lord of the Rings, or the movie Lord of the Rings, for example. So the title, okay, we need a capital letter for Lord and rings, not for of and the. Okay, when we are capitalizing titles of books or movies or magazines or anything like that, only the important words, the major words, need to be capitalized, not the articles and not the prepositions. They don't need capital letters. So I can't think of any movies that are out right now. This one was out in the spring, I believe. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, that's the title of a movie, a book as well. So the capital for the person's name, Willy Wonka, and the name of the factory, the Chocolate Factory. The and the do not, again, need capital letters. Okay, number 4, capitalize events and periods. So events like World War I or World War II needs capital letters. Bronze Age needs capital letters. Okay, so events and periods. And number 5, capitalize I as a pronoun. So my, and it doesn't matter where it occurs in the sentence, it needs always to be a capital letter. So my friend and I went shopping. Okay, so I, when it's used as a pronoun, needs to be capitalized. Anywhere it appears in a sentence. If it's at the beginning of the sentence, of course it needs to be capitalized because it's at the beginning of the sentence. But, like I said, when it's a pronoun, it always needs to be capitalized. So my friend and I went shopping, capital letter I went shopping. Right at the beginning of the sentence, it needs to be capitalized because it's the beginning and because it's a pronoun that refers to me. Okay. Oops. Number 6, capitalize locations and direct addresses. So locations like Sioux Lookout. So names of places. Direct addresses, let's say 74 Front Street. Okay, needs capital letters. Capitalize months, days, and holidays. So January, February, etc. needs capital letters. Monday, Tuesday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, okay, Valentine's Days, those all need capital letters because they are holidays. Birthday, your birthday is not a holiday. It's a special day for you, but it's not a holiday, so the word birthday does not need a capital letter. Okay, the seasons as well, spring, summer, winter, and fall, unless they become at the beginning of the sentence, they do not need capital letters. Number 8, capitalize ethnic names. So, for example, First Nations. Egyptian. Okay, anything like that needs capital letters. Capitalize trademark names. So, Nike, Temu, Lululemon. Okay, those all need capital letters. They're trademark names. Okay, so correct or incorrect. Look at the following sentences and determine whether each sentence is capitalized incorrectly or capitalized correctly. So number 1, Big Ben of London is a clock. So Big Ben is the specific name of a famous clock. London is the name of a place, so this is correct. Okay, number 2, I drove east to the city and turned north. So I, beginning of sentence is capitalized, drove east to the city. East is a direction. It does not need to be capitalized, and turned north. Again, north and east are directions. They don't need to be capitalized. City is not a specific city, just says the city. So this one is also correct. Number 3, my family supports the American Cancer Society. So capital letter at the beginning. Family doesn't need a capital letter. Supports the... Now the American Cancer Society is the name of a specific organization. So all of it needs to be capitalized. American Cancer Society. So that one was incorrect. Number 4, Yellowstone National Park is a great park. So Yellowstone National Park is the name of a park, so all of these capital letters need to be there. Is a great park. This doesn't need to be capitalized because it's just a great park. It's not a specific park. This part of it isn't. So this one was also incorrect. Number 5. Wait a minute. I missed something. Okay, well, let's finish this down here first. I work for the Sioux Bulletin. So capital letter at the beginning of the sentence, as well as for the pronoun I. Sioux Bulletin is the name of the newspaper, so it needs a capital S. So that one it was also incorrect. Number 6, she is a teacher and proud of it. So capital letter at the beginning of the sentence, and nothing else in there needs a capital letter. So that one is correct. Number 7, the Emancipation Proclamation was issued in 1862. So capital letter for the beginning of the sentence. Emancipation Proclamation is a special proclamation. So the whole thing, the E, sorry, not the whole thing, and the P both need to be capitalized. So this one was incorrect. Number 8, Buddhists have been around a very long time. So beginning of the sentence plus the religion, Buddhism, have been around a very long time. That one is correct. Number 9, the Sydney Opera House is a gorgeous building. So capital letter at the beginning of the sentence. Sydney Opera House is a specific building, needs capital letters, but gorgeous building does not need to be capitalized. So that one was incorrect. Number 10, the Bronze Age lasted for several thousand years. Capital at the beginning of the sentence. Specific time, Bronze Age, needs to be capitalized. Nothing else in the sentence needs to be capitalized, so that one is correct. Okay, let's go back up here now. And practice using capital letters properly. So which words in the following sentences need a capital letter? There are 25. Okay, so first of all, beginning of the sentence always needs a capital letter. So I'll fix all of those right now. So that's right off the get-go, all need capital letters. Okay, so the first sentence, my favorite books are Green Eggs and Ham and Horton Hears a Who. So the titles of the books are Green Eggs and Ham. So we need capital G, capital E, and capital H. The A, remember, doesn't need a capital letter. And Horton Hears a Who. So Horton needs capital H, hears, capital H. A doesn't need a capital letter, but who does. Okay, so titles of books. Oh, excuse me. Number 2, on Sunday I will see the movie Star Wars and eat at Tim Hortons. So, on, capital at the beginning. The pronoun I needs to be a capital. The movie, names of the movies, or name of the name of the movie, Star Wars, needs a capital S, capital W, and eat at Tim Hortons, name of a restaurant, capital T, capital H. Number 3, Terry and Lewis went to Central Park last July. So we need a capital T for Terry because it's at the beginning of the sentence and also because it's a person's name. Lewis needs a capital letter, person's name. Went to Central Park. Central Park is a specific park. The name of the park is Central Park last July. Capital J for the month of July. Number 4, she has a friend from Vancouver, British Columbia. So capital S for she at the beginning of the sentence. From Vancouver, name of a province, or sorry, a city. British Columbia, name of a province. Needs capital letters. And did you know that Sir John A. Macdonald was the first Prime Minister of Canada? So did you, capital D for did you know that Sir John A. Macdonald, person, need all capital letters for Sir because that's his title. John, his first name, his initial A needs a capital letter as well, and his last name Macdonald was the first Prime Minister of Canada. So we don't need capital letters for Prime Minister unless we were saying Prime Minister Macdonald. Then we would use capital letters because Prime Minister would be his title. But in this case we don't. Canada needs a capital C. Okay. Next page, rewrite the sentences to fix the errors. So number 1, what time is it in China? Asked my dad. So we need a capital C for China because that's the name of a place. Okay, and a capital A for asked because this marks the end of the sentence. My dad doesn't need a capital D. It needs a lowercase d. Number 2, we traveled north for 300 miles before reaching the Pacific Northwest. So we got a capital W at the beginning of the sentence. We traveled north as a direction, so we don't need capital N before reaching the Pacific Northwest. So the Pacific Northwest is a specific area, so we need capital P and a capital N. Number 3, have you ever read Catcher in the Rye? So have, beginning of the sentence, needs capital H. You ever read Catcher in the Rye is the name of a book. We don't need capital letters for in and the. Spring is my favorite season, though I do love the fall because we celebrate Thanksgiving. So spring needs a capital letter because it's at the beginning of the sentence. That's the only reason it needs a capital letter. Though I needs a capital letter because it's the pronoun I. Do love the fall. Again, as I mentioned, seasons do not need a capital letter. So fall because we celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving holiday needs capital letter. Number 5, Mary bought a set of Tiffany china for Mom's birthday. So Mary, beginning of the sentence, and person's name needs capital M. A set of Tiffany china, specific type of china, needs capital letters for Mom's birthday. Birthday does not need a capital letter, so a lowercase b. Okay, so that's capital letters. So that brings us to key question 4. 37 capital letters are missing from the following sentences. Rewrite the sentences with correct capitalization. So 37 letters are missing, 37 marks. So find all of the missing capital letters and write them in. Okay, next, punctuation. Whoa, where'd it go? Okay, you need to have, on bottom page 27 is some information on punctuation. And as I mentioned, punctuation and capitalization go hand in hand because capital letters can give us an idea of what punctuation we need to use or where we need punctuation used, and punctuation can help us determine where we need to use capital letters at the the beginning of a sentence or whatever. So beginning on page 27. On page 28, there's also information on punctuation, and on page 29. And the bottom of page 29 is your support question 12. Okay, do that support question and check your answers at the end of the lesson. All right, so punctuation. Punctuation, before we get into the different types of punctuation, we need to use punctuation when we're writing because it helps us to communicate. So if we don't use the proper punctuation, people don't know where our sentence, our ideas end or where the next one begins. They also don't know where they should slow down or where they need to pause when they're reading. So if we don't use the proper punctuation, or we don't use any punctuation, which some people don't, it's very, very difficult to get meaning from something when you read it. So sometimes you might have to read something 2 or 3 times to try to figure out what the person is saying. And if it's a work situation, sometimes we don't have 2 or 3, the time to read something 2 or 3 times to figure out what people are saying. Okay, so in order to be a good communicator, punctuation is very, very important, and we need to practice it. So first of all, let's start with the period. Okay, that's the most basic punctuation mark. A period indicates the end of a sentence, or it follows an abbreviation. So generally it's used to indicate the end of a sentence. So the end of a sentence is where your idea ends, what you're trying to say. Not everything, but one idea. So for example, we feed this cat every evening. Period. That's one idea. Mr. Brown does not agree with these new rules. Period. Okay, that's a statement about something. He does not agree with these rules. Also, the abbreviation Mr. So the short form of writing Mr. M-I-S-T-E-R is M-R followed by a period. Same thing with the short form of Mrs. M-R-S followed by a period. M-S followed by a period for Miss. Okay. Other abbreviations, Doctor, D-R followed by a period. TV, television, T period, V period. So there are lots of abbreviations that have periods in them. Okay, next is the comma. Now a comma has a lot of uses. We use them in a lot of places, but we also have to be very careful that we don't overuse the comma. Some people put commas in everywhere and then it just gets confusing. So be careful with your use of commas. So the most common comma rules. So a comma is used, a comma separates 2 sentences when putting a full stop. So when putting a period between them seems to create an unnecessarily long pause. So for example, Mark went by bus and Allison took a train. So if we put a period in there, it would be Mark went by bus. And we'd have to get rid of and it would be Allison took a train. Okay? We don't need that long of a pause in there. We don't need to end the sentence. We just need to just have a little break. Take a little pause. Mark went by bus and Allison took a train. Okay? To separate items in a list. So if you're listing, you're for example, you're making a pie and you want to figure out what ingredients you need and you're listing them out. So for example, we bought. This is a list of what we bought. apples, comma, peaches, comma, grapes, comma, and oranges in the fruit market. So there's a list of fruit. So we put a comma between each type of fruit, so there's not, we bought apples, peaches, grapes, and oranges. Okay, and then it looks like one long thing, one piece of fruit that's called apples, peaches, grapes, and oranges. Okay, so use your commas there to separate items in a list. It might be we saw monkeys, gorillas, chimpanzees, and elephants at the zoo. Okay, but put commas in there. Doesn't matter what you're listing. Put a comma between each item. Commas are used after an introductory word or phrase, such as at the end of the day, comma, however, comma, in contrast, comma, and etc. So those types of introductory words or phrases. So for example, nevertheless, comma, we managed to get home before sunset. However, we were late. Okay, commas are used to distinguish an end question from the rest of the sentence. So if you put a question at the end, for example, you're going to the party this weekend, aren't you? You would put a comma before you ask that question. And number 5, use a comma if you are directly addressing someone. So if you're talking to someone and you're saying their name. So for example, James, what are you doing tomorrow after school? Okay, so you're saying somebody's name, you're talking to them specifically, you put a comma after their name. Okay, next is the question mark. So a question mark needs to go at the end of every interrogative sentence. So basically a question mark needs to go at the end of every question. So for example, how old are you? Question. Do you remember what I told you about yesterday? Question. So you're asking something, you're expecting someone to respond to you, to answer you. Okay, an exclamation mark shows emphasis or strong emotion at the end of a sentence. So as I mentioned earlier, when we use, when we're reviewing the parts of speech, you put an exclamation mark after at the end of an interjection. So something that shows emphasis or strong emotion. So instead of this time like one word or two words, these are sentences that have exclamation marks. So leave me alone. Okay, you're yelling at someone to leave you alone. I'm so happy to see you. Exclamation mark. I can't wait to go to Paris. So shows a lot of strong feeling. So you use an exclamation mark there. And sometimes when people are using exclamation marks, they'll put 2 or 3 or 4 in there. It doesn't matter. One exclamation mark is all you need. That's it. Okay, quotation marks. So quotation marks are these things here that I like to call 66 and 99 because that's what they look like. So quotation marks indicate direct quotations. You can also use them to show that a word or a phrase is being used ironically, or for titles of articles, book chapters, episodes of a TV show, etc. So for example, somebody said, Jerry said, you'll never believe what happened last night. So here you use the quotation marks because that's exactly what Jerry said. Okay, sometimes if people see this, for example, leave me alone, they'll put quotation marks around it. Okay, you don't do that. If it said, leave me alone, said Marcia, then you put quotation marks because Marcia said it. But if there's nothing there that says said Marcia or yelled Marcia or whatever, you do not use quotation marks. Okay, in her article, so this is the title of her, where's my pen gone? Her article, How to Succeed in Everything You Do. Because that's the title, you put quotation marks around it. So in her article, How to Succeed in Everything You Do, Mary Smith gives her readers 3 valuable pieces of advice. Okay, next is the apostrophe. An apostrophe can be used in contractions in place of omitted letters, and it can show ownership. So in a contraction, so we're shortening a word. So our not. As a contraction is aren't. Apostrophe T. Okay. Will not. As a contraction, won't. W-O-N apostrophe T. Okay, shows that. It's generally to show that with the O is missing. So instead of are not, it's aren't. The O is missing from the not, so there's apostrophe in there. Will not, the O is missing from not, so there's an apostrophe in there. So that's what we mean by contractions. And it can show ownership. Okay, so you do not have to go to the supermarket if you don't, again, do not want to. We need to invite both of Sally's sisters. They're her sisters, so we use an apostrophe S on Sally's. Because otherwise, if it's S-A-L-L-Y-S, it means there's more than one Sally. Okay, that's a plural form, just putting an S there. If we want to show ownership, we need an apostrophe S. A hyphen. A hyphen is commonly used to create compound words. Sometimes people use it in writing, but generally it's only used for compound words. So he is a very self-confident person. Okay, the word is made up of self and confident. Due to various factors, Susan decided to work part-time this summer. So again, to make a contraction. And we talked about that earlier on too. A colon, so two periods, basically one stacked on top of the other, can introduce an example, a list, an explanation, or a quotation. Or you can also use it to emphasize a certain point. So for example, there are two things you can do. So, colon. Now I'm going to tell you what two things you can do are. Continue being miserable or move on with your life. There's only one person in the world who can tell you what you should do. You. So, kind of emphasizes that point. Okay, so not used very often, but good to know. Okay, then we have a semicolon. So this one is like a period on the top with a comma underneath it. So using both. It's used to create a pause between two independent clauses that are still closely related to each other. So sometimes we'll use it instead of a comma. So for example, my mother is a doctor, my father's an accountant. So telling you what my parents are, and instead of saying my father's a doctor, period, new sentence, my mother is an accountant. I did that wrong backwards, but anyway. You put a little pause in there. My mother's a doctor, semicolon, my father's an accountant. Jane has spent the whole morning trying to figure out what to wear. She ended up choosing the first outfit out of all that she tried on that day. So again, using a semicolon instead of a period or a comma. Okay, parentheses, brackets we call them, are used for additional information. For example, my young daughters, and in brackets, to let you know how old they are, aged 5 and 7, just love playing with their neighbors' dogs. So here we have, just mention this, an apostrophe here because the word neighbors is plural, so more than one neighbor, but it's all the neighbors' dogs, so we need an apostrophe at the end of neighbors to show that it's the neighbors' dogs. It's their dogs. And then we have the square brackets. Again, these are used for quotes and adding information, but these are generally used in academic writing and when presenting quotes. For instance, the writer can add extra information or fix mistakes in brackets without changing the original quotation. So sometimes you'll see square brackets used in news articles. So for example, the witness said, I could hear him. Who could he hear? The policeman, but I couldn't see him. Okay, so I could hear him, but I couldn't see him. If that was all that was there, we wouldn't know they were talking about the policeman. We could have been talking about the burglar or whatever, or the victim or something. But in this case, the him means the policeman. So we use the square brackets for that. Okay, and then we have an ellipsis, very seldom used. Can be used to show that some letters or even words are omitted. For example, so, what happened next? So leaving out something. She was smart, funny, and pretty, but something still felt wrong. Okay, so there's something something is missing from the sentence. Sometimes we use this when we're taking a quote from an article. Instead of writing out the whole article, we'll just write out the most relevant part of it, and we'll use ellipses at the beginning and end to show that there was more to it. And a slash is used to write a fraction, a measurement, or to suggest alternatives in your text. For example, for this recipe you will need a half glass of water and 3/4 glass of flour. The car was going as fast as 120 kilometers per hour. You need to press the on-off button. Okay, so those are the punctuation marks. So now let's do a little bit of practice with using punctuation and capitalization. Okay, number 1, I am wondering what you're talking about, said Michael to his boss. So beginning of a sentence needs a capital letter, plus it's the pronoun I. I am wondering what you're talking about. So now we've got said Michael to his boss, capital M for Michael, period at the end. So because it says said Michael, we need to put quotations around what Michael said. I'm wondering what you're talking about. So we need quotation marks there and a comma after about, because that's not the end of the sentence. I'm wondering what you're talking about, said Michael to his boss. Okay, so period, quotation marks around what Michael said, comma after what he said, and then the explanation, said Michael to his boss, with a period at the end. Number 2, when I try to go to sleep, explain the patient to the doctor, I have a horrible time. So we've got explain the patient to the doctor. So the patient said something to the doctor. What did the patient say? When I try to go to sleep. So first of all, capital W for the beginning of the sentence, capital I for pronoun I. Then we need quotation marks around what the patient said, when I try to go to sleep, and a comma, explain the patient to the doctor, and then the patient said something else, comma, capital I, quotation marks, have a horrible time, quotation marks, and a period at the end. Okay, number 3, without thinking, the teacher announced, I'm not assigning homework for the rest of the school year. Capital letter at the beginning of the sentence. Now there's nothing here. Oh yes, there is. Without thinking, the teacher announced. So the teacher said something. This is what the teacher said. I'm not assigning homework for the rest of the year. So we need quotation marks. So without thinking, we need a comma, because these are introductory words. Without thinking, comma, the teacher announced. What did the teacher announce? Colon. I'm needs capital I, apostrophe M, not assigning homework for the rest of the school year, period. Okay, so we need quotation marks in there, we need commas in there, we need apostrophes, we need a colon and a period. So lots in that sentence. Whew. Number 4, excuse me, said Lucy, I forgot to call and make a reservation for our dinner. So Lucy said something. What did she say? She said, excuse me, I forgot to call and make a reservation for our dinner. So it's a split quotation. So capital E for excuse me, comma after me, said Lucy, capital L for Lucy, capital I, another comma in there after Lucy, so continue on what she said. I forgot to call and make a reservation for our dinner, period. Number 5, after we walked to the park, Ian said to me, we have to do this more often. So capital A for after we walked to the park, comma, capital I for Ian. Ian said to me. Now, what did Ian say? Colon. This is the first thing he said, so we need a capital W. We have to do this more often. Quotation marks and a period. Okay, so we don't have time to finish the rest of them, but you get the idea. So your key question 5, rewrite the following sentences, adding proper punctuation. So you got to rewrite these sentences. Don't just stick punctuation in what's there already, because you might have to make some other changes as well. So watch out. So look at what's here. So watch out. There's a capital letter here. So that means that you need some kind of end punctuation in right here. Watch out. You wouldn't just say watch out. You'd say watch out. You'd yell it. Watch out. There's a moose on the road. And you might yell that too. There's a moose on the road. Or you might just put a period there. Okay, so watch for the different types of punctuation. Then on the next page, part 2, insert commas. So all you're putting here this time is the commas. Put commas in the sentences where they belong. Okay, and that's it for key question 5. So finish that up. Send both key questions 4 and 5 out to me for marking as soon as possible. Please contact me if you have any questions. Other than that, I will talk to you again in class on Wednesday. Miigwech.